So don't be afraid, it will be a very short conclusion, but we wanted all to thank you very much for all this event. So I want first to start by being grateful with all the partners. First, of course, our gratefulness is for the DPM Tarman, who was here yesterday and honored us with his presence and very important insights. Also, the authorities of Singapore, which have been very helpful to organize this. The French embassy, the ambassador is again with us. The Singaporean embassy in France, and we had the chance to have the former ambassador, and the embassy was very helpful in Paris. All the speakers coming from academy, companies, public organizations, and the partners, Accenture, Air France KLM, Amundi, Ardian, Ascot, BNP Paribas, BPI France, Capgemini, Euler Hermes, Finance Innovation, International SOS, LVMH, and Société Générale. Sometimes the French companies with an English accent, and sometimes English companies with French accent. Sorry about that. But thank you so much for being partners. It has been very helpful, and also we have benefited from the insights of people working in those companies, and I think that was one of the interests of this seminar, to mix the different points of view coming from different areas. In a few words, I just want to say we were all impressed by the variety of insights, sometimes with convergence, sometimes with some divergence. One sentence has been pronounced during the last table, which was global order is on stress. I think that this sentence can be shared by everybody, if I heard well, everybody. And there was a lot of things about finance, about economy, about politics, about geopolitics, about education, also about our countries and about France and Singapore in particular. We had I think about finance, I was impressed by the fact that there was kind of consensus about some big aspects. For example, Bertrand Badret said that we had to direct the funds to the needs of the world. And he said we need to reset the system. I think that most of the people who have spoken during the 2 days have said more or less that. And I think it's maybe one of the most impressive conclusions from my point of view. Sometimes we had the impression that there is a kind of fatality in this global stress, but at other moments we feel that there are a lot of opportunities. I think that what is optimistic in what we have heard, and there is a lot of students here, and I think we have the duty to be optimistic for their future, and all the skills we are giving to them are there for this future, is the fact that despite all those macro trends that we have seen in finance, in technology, at the end of the day, what is important is the human factor. Especially from 2 points of view. Demography, it was something very important in our debates. How we regulate migrations, how we have a vision about the world in 30 years with the big demographic trends of the world of today. And of course, and we are in a campus, education, which is of course the main leverage to have an influence on the human factor. So that's why I think that the first conclusion from my point of view is the importance, of course, of research and education and higher education for our 2 countries, for our 2 regions, and of course for the world. We have had some insights about the fact that we could go further in terms of more relationships between the 2 regions. It can be in terms of economy, but also in terms of education. And I think that this event has been a good illustration of that, and maybe it opens the floor to new initiatives in the future. We will discuss about the fact of organizing again this event. There is a good trend, a good feeling, good vibrations for that, but we will confirm that after discussions with all of you. Thank you so much for your participation, and see you very soon.
Okay, one thing you didn't do was to thank ESSEC. So because, no, I mean, we're really grateful. It's been, your facilities are wonderful. I mean, it's been really a pleasure to have this working atmosphere here, and everything went so well, and I would like to really thank you and your colleagues for this cooperation. Now on the future of this conference, you know, the title is Europe and the Asian Century, and we heard from Kishore that it's a bit short-sighted. We should say at least Europe and the Asian millennium. But that even, I mean, it was basically, he was telling us it's a Europe and Asian eternity. So that leaves rooms for further meetings, but we shouldn't wait for too long, because I think that also what we discussed during these 2 days are issues that are really pressing, some of them, and the meeting was timely, but some of the issues we've been discussing are really pressing and call for further discussion and responses. So I think we are going to reflect on how to take it forward and take further initiatives. And I think on behalf of the Cercle, I would say that we're very keen on continuing this type of cooperation. Now, the tradition of the Cercle as economists is that each meeting at X ends with a declaration. And the statement is what we call the declaration or the statement, is basically telling everyone what he or she has to do. I mean, the heads of state and government and ministers and, you know, central bankers and the rest. So that's something on which we haven't worked this time. And it's a wonderful moment because everybody is tired and hungry, and then we read out the declaration explaining what people have to do. So perhaps that's an innovation we should think about for the next meeting. No, really, I mean, that has been wonderful, and I started by thanking you, but obviously the two other institutions that participate in it, especially the Economic Society of Singapore, have really to share the congratulations and the thanks for their participation and initiative.
Thank you. Perhaps a few words. Opening the conference with Jean, I had the privilege for EUROPLACE to co-organize this event with the Economic Society of Singapore, ESSEC, and Cercle des économistes. And at the end of this conference, just let me say my enthusiastic listening to Enrico Letta and Christian Noyer on the unique opportunity for Europe with Brexit or after Brexit, listening to Benjamin Dubertret and the impact of climate change and the role of green finance, and of course of DP empowerment, of the need for a closer relationship between Singapore and France. So thank you for this event, and we'll see for the next steps. Thank you.
Well, distinguished guests, colleagues, we're off to a good start, I think. Throughout the 2 days, I think we learned all the wonderful insights, the problems, the flaws, and some of the remedies suggested that we will move either Europe or Asia in this century. In fact, this conference is quite remarkable for the Economic Society of Singapore for one main reason. All our vice presidents are speaking in this conference. It's very rare to find every vice president participating, and that I'm very happy to see everyone putting in its due. I want to thank Ambassador Tan, actually, for bringing this conference idea to us almost about one year, 1.5 years ago. And Ambassador Dubertret, who actually followed up and supported the event. And of course, our Honorary Secretary, Walter Teixeira, who took on the shoulders of attending every meeting and following up procedures and reminders and so on. I think one of the things that I learned from this conference is that this idea of globalization, open economies and so on, I think the message is quite clear that we are actually not in any way against it or something, you know, we are actually very for it. But of course, along with globalization, open economies, you know, we realize that, well, it's not going to be perfect, it's going to be some problems and so on, and we learn from all the insights what these are and what we can do about them to try to mitigate some of these problems and issues. So I think we are off to a good start, as I said, and we hope that this inaugural thing that we have here will continue on years to come, perhaps taking on a more thematic kind of topics rather than sort of a generalized conference. So this is something that we may explore for future conferences. So it remains for me to thank all our collaborators, and I think they've been wonderful. Thank our sponsors, and to you in particular, our guest speakers and the audience for participating here and spending the time in Singapore. Now, I hope you will not be rushing back out of Singapore yet. So spend some time. You know, the economy is kind of bad these days. Down in Orchard Road and Marina Square, that would be great. Thank you very much.